All right. So it is 10:30. We'll go ahead and get started. As everybody starts jumping in and joining here, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to this session of the NCGIS conference. We are here to see a session entitled The Greensboro Culvert Inspections, Using Survey123 and Collector Together for Improved Data Collection. My name is Ben Shelton. I'm with CGIA. I'm the moderator for this session. I just want to remind everybody that if you have questions, please join the chat on the right side of the window in Attendee Hub. And then I will be monitoring that chat and I'll relay those questions to Justin and Zach at the end of their presentation to relay any answers that they may have. So if you have any questions, please use the chat. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Justin Richardson and Zach Petersen to get this session started. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. So Ben told you the name of our session here. My name is Justin Richardson. I work at WithersRavenel and have for almost 4 years now doing GIS work. And I've been in the GIS industry about 15 years roughly. And today we wanted to do this presentation as a story map, just as kind of a nod to Esri. And so Zach is actually going to lead us off with today's talk. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and he's going to kick off our discussion about stormwater inspections and what we're doing here today. So Zach, if you want to take it away.
Thank you, Justin. Again, my name is Zach Petersen. I've been with the City of Greensboro for 8 years, but I've been an analyst for about 13. And last year I was tasked to kind of work as a support role for the City of Greensboro's culvert inspection program, and then ultimately asked to kind of take over the project as a project management role after another member changed positions. So I think the best place to start here is kind of what is a culvert. I think most people think a culvert is that pipe under their driveway, you know, and in a way it kind of is. But by definition, basically it allows for water conveyance under a road or a trail or a railroad. But as you can see from the photos below, they come in all different shapes and sizes and materials. And if you pay attention to the third photo on the left, they can also look very much like bridges. Slide, please. So what is a culvert inspection program? So the City of Greensboro on a 5-year rotation inspects all culverts to protect motorists. And so we usually consult out and hire out people to perform those inspections. And most culverts don't need any maintenance at all. And obviously some do. And so some culverts actually just require, you know, debris removal or sediment removal. However, some require more, and it could be due to structural defects or undermining, or in extreme cases, replacement. And so the city needs to know where this work needs to be done and what to do. So for obvious reasons, we utilize and have inspections performed by qualified engineers. So as you can see from the photo on the left, you know, this is like a sediment deposit that's within a culvert, or next photo would be, you know, storm debris. The third photo kind of shows storm debris that's actually impacted some walls and chipped away at some, and some can be just, that's very minimal damage, but some can be actually, you know, quite extensive. So we also are looking at like scour, and then sometimes from the fourth photo, we're looking at like riprap that was either sized incorrectly, or the velocity calculations for that area were not, you know, the velocity calculations exceeded what was measured. And so, so we need an inspection program. Slide, please. So what is an inspected culvert? So as GIS people, we really want to know what the where is, but to me, defining what I'm looking at first leads me to the methodologies or queries that are critical to getting to the where, because ultimately we're delivering a product for the consultant to consume, and therefore they're going to in turn perform their role and then give it back to us. So for the purposes of this project, I got with all the individuals here at the city and really kind of made them define what it was. And so we're talking about culverts that are 48 inches or greater. They must be located under a road. They must not be part of a overall culvert piped or over a piped system. So they need to be open on one end, and they're not a bridge. And so I actually went out and reached out to NCDOT because they do most of the inspections on bridges. And some culverts do appear, kind of like what we talked about in slide 1, was that sometimes they look like a bridge. So I got with them and I removed those items that NCDOT would inspect from my list. Slide, please. So previous inspection deliverables from previous consultants kind of looked like an external hard drive. They were folders that were full of sorted photos, but they were kind of referenced back. And then they were basically, the report was 2 massive Excel spreadsheets. And they contained individual inspection reports, the titles of the photos so that we could reference back to them, and then overall condition assessments. And through no fault of our own, our database was, those deliverables from the spreadsheets were named pipes and culverts because our database at the time had stormwater pipes and stormwater culverts that both needed to be inspected. And so that really didn't make things easy to consume when we got deliverables back from consultants. Slide, please. So the city, as I mentioned before, the city's GIS data before was stored in 2 different locations. There was no designation that indicated this pipe or this culvert needed to be inspected. And then there was not an easy way to find or query that information from that deliverable. And then there was another kind of issue that we kind of started having was, as you've seen from that a couple of slides, that there can be more than one culvert barrel per location. And so we get into this one-to-many relationship. And so we didn't really know if this culvert barrel was part of an overall culvert system. And so we wanted to be able to group them and handle that. And then when we received information from the consultant, it was kind of like line by line, record by record, what needed to be done and what had, and if there needed to be work, how do we process that through? So slide, please. So as I stated before, I was kind of tasked with revamping this whole thing. And so, you know, what we want to do is be able to deliver a product to the consultant that they can consume wisely, and then we can be able to pull that back in wisely as well. And so one, we wanted to make things easier. So how did we do that? We took all the inspected features and we put them in one feature class, and we call them culverts. The second thing we did was we gave all of our culverts that were grouped together, such as the image on the right, a culvert ID or a culvert system ID, which handled that one-to-many relationship well. So then things are grouped, we know where they were, and then ultimately to the consultant, they knew how many locations to go to inspect. That helped us with our scope. And then we set up relationship classes so that we can kind of import inspection forms nicely, photos that related to those individual location or inspections locations correctly. And it allows for linking things in and getting things together. And so when we met with WithersRavenel to define our scope, they really paid a lot of attention to this part of that deliverable. And I think this is the portion that I'm going to turn back over to Justin to explain how they did that part.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, so Zach did a great job setting up the data ahead of time. So then it was tasked to us to come up with the proper inspection and how to set up that database and everything. And so this is a traditional paper form. One of our subcontractors gave this to us and said, here's the things we'd like to inspect while we're out there. These are the things that we know that we need to look for. So how do we get this digitally, essentially? And so you can see, there's a lot of different types of questions in here, like a lot that are sort of like check boxes, yes, no's, select ones, things like that. And the thing that came to mind for us was Survey123, being that it's, form based. But then we also wanted the field crews to be able to have a map, be able to see where they're going, see where they are, and that sort of thing. So how did we get everything that we needed together to make this process more efficient for the field crews? And so, we considered, of course, collectors. So being that it's map centric, this covered the part where the field crews could see where they are. We could set up custom symbology and bookmarks. Everybody knows how to use collector. It's super easy, quick and simple to set up. So we knew we wanted that portion. And then Survey123, of course, covered the form-centric part of this for us, being able to hide questions that they didn't need to necessarily see, grouping questions, using conditional logic, nesting data, things like that. Because, if you're just collecting, 100, 150 questions in collector, essentially you're looking at a list and it's just question after question. You can go cross-eyed trying to work through that. And anybody who works in the field knows that that's tough too, especially when you've got the sun blasting down on your tablet and things like that. So we wanted to make it easier for the inspectors as well. So some other things, at the time, field maps was not available in any form for enterprise. So that would have been one of the things that we had looked at the time had it been out. But as it is right now, there's still some advantages to using Survey123. Like there's a little bit more customization than field maps offers, being able to embed pictures, use signatures, add the different question types, things like that. So the process is still working really well for us. And so this is our use case. We had 1,072 culverts that needed to be inspected. Essentially, we needed those inspections to be tied to these culverts as related records in a related table. We needed to be able to attach a large amount of pictures, and we're talking on some of these culverts, up to 20, 30 pictures, just a huge amount of data. If there was a problem with that culvert, we needed to be able to document that. And Zach is shaking his head because, there are problems out there. These things happen. So how did we get to this point? I mentioned enterprise before. WithersRavenel, we do have ArcGIS Enterprise set up. So essentially, we created an enterprise geodatabase. We took that paper form and converted that into a customized database schema with all the domains that we needed, all the questions, attributes, essentially adjusting those settings in SDE. So there's certain things you have to do, like you can't have versioning turned on. You have to have archiving turned on, syncing turned on, things like that, making sure everything is working as it needs to. And then at that point, of course, you publish your feature class, a related table. And we use Survey123 to set up the form. I know you can use the web version, but it's a little bit more limited. So we wanted to have more customization, more flexibility in how we did this. So essentially, the process is that you can generate a survey from an existing feature service, and that's what we did. And then you build additional edits and customizations on top of that. So once we did that, we were free to set up the web map, the dashboard, and that's what we did. And this is just a quick little screenshot of what the form looked like with everything grouped. Whereas collector, you'd see 150 of these sort of things in a row, but we could group things here. And I'll show you that in a little bit as well. So how do you collect these things? You use a submission URL. So essentially you can go to the Survey123 web portal and you can grab a hyperlink to your form, and you can take that hyperlink and you can paste it into a pop-up in collector. And essentially you click on your feature in collector, you get to the culvert you want to, and you can pull up that hyperlink, hit that hyperlink, and it will pull up either the Survey123 field app, which currently only seems to support adding new related records. It doesn't edit existing. Or you could also use the web form, which does the opposite, which supports editing existing but not new related records right now. At least in my experience, that's what I found it to be true. And so you can pass additional fields through that URL by adding attributes onto the end. And this syntax right here. So essentially you add your field, your related field name, and then equals, and then your parent field name. And that's going to pass that information to the form, which is pretty cool. So what does this all look like at the end? This is our dashboard that we put together. We've got our web map here on the right, inspection lists, which is all of the inspections related records over here on the left, and our counter, inspections remaining, culverts inspected, and oh, looks like they've done a few more just today. So essentially, the web map, we have areas that have been subdivided by our subcontractors. They can, wanted to break those up into different areas to group. And so the green culverts haven't been inspected, the red have not. So we can click on that, come in here, see all this existing information on that culvert. And then at the top, we have our URL that we were talking about before. So if I click on that, that's going to pull up. So if I were mobile right now, it would make a little bit more sense, but this is going to pull up the Survey123 field app. And I'll just give you just a quick look at what that looks like here. And it's going to throw an error because I'm on a computer and I don't have a GPS. But essentially, this is the form again. This is all that existing information we're pulling from the parent feature that we're referencing there. It's super useful for the field crew. And then we've grouped all these different attributes in different areas of the form. So you see there's date field, time field, yes, no boxes. For photos, we were able to also group those and nest those. If they needed to take a photo, hit yes, then it gives them the option. If they need to take another, they say yes. And that way they're not looking at a form that just has the option to take, you're scrolling through 50 of these essentially. Would be pretty cumbersome. So that's just a quick look at the form. Another handy thing that can be done here in this web map, you can select your culvert. On the left in the related table here, it brings up the associated inspection. So you can see all that data. And this is very cool and it's helpful for not only us, but it's helpful for Greensboro and the subcontractors, to QA what's happening, to see our progress, to be able to look at these at a quick glance. There's a lot of information that's going into these. So we have a lot of different people looking at all of this and making sure everything makes sense. In addition to that, we have the photos here at the bottom, which is pretty handy that you can scroll through those right here in the dashboard. You see they're all named out in the field, so we know what is what. And you can scroll through them here, see everything in one place. And the thing I wanted to mention, this structural defects grade this is sort of the bread and butter for this whole project. This is kind of the main thing that Greensboro was looking for, so they know what needs to be repaired, in the priority list, what needs to be first, that sort of thing. Zach, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that a little bit more about how this has helped you guys, or if you had any additional thoughts on that.
Sure. So, like Justin said, that structural defect grade really gives us an idea. So we have 1,072 culverts. How do we manage that data, and how do we know what needs to be repaired like right away versus what needs to be just standard maintenance? And then if we dumped a whole, like if we got a deliverable where it wasn't in chunks like this, and we're getting about 100, maybe 110 culverts at a time, which allows us to consume that data real quick. So if it needs a little bit of maintenance, we can write a work order to our field ops crews, and that can get done. Or if it's a high priority, then we know right away to go do an inspection, to take a look at that. And we can prioritize that, and work orders can be created to handle that, and heaven forbid it gets to an extreme case where it needs, a replacement, but we would know to go ahead and let's get that street marked off, and and let's take care of things. So that really helped us, one, to be able to consume the information that was coming in, to give a real quick assessment of what, if this was, we could table this work, or if it was like a total blockage and it could possibly overtop a road. So yeah, that's kind of where I think that goes. I think the dashboard gives us a good assessment too of, I have a boss, everybody's kind of got a boss, and they want to know, how's the project going? Where are we at? What's happening too? And it kind of allows me to be able to relay that information, because obviously I work under an engineer for, for these kind of reasons. And, they would want to know real quick, where are we at? So I think that explains it, Justin.
Yeah, that's great. And essentially, like I said, our team is able to use this for quick reference for where we are each month, as well as the subcontractors are able to reference this and to QA some of their work as well. So, and essentially that's pretty much all we have. Wanted to go ahead and open it up to questions. I think we're probably right at time, or maybe over time a little bit. So
yeah, we have it's a good presentation, guys. There are several questions in the attendee hub. I'll go through starting at the top. We have about 10 minutes left here. All right, so the first question from Sam Feldstein, how important is photography in the data? Also, is a photo required for every culvert?
Do you want me to take that one, Justin?
Yeah, if you want to.
For sure. It is required. We wanted an upstream, downstream, so obviously both sides. They're kind of required to take a photo of defects, and there's a defects kind of list that we kind of gave them and said, these are the things we want to concentrate on. But it really helps that the inspectors were already bridge inspectors for NCDOT anyway, so they really knew what they were doing. They kind of had a good plan. But then that allows, like, I have a boss and she's an engineer, and she's the one that says, I want to see this. I want to see if that's bad, or if it's really mission critical or not. And then she also wants to know if that requires another inspection by us to put eyes on the prize and make that determination, and then either push the work order out that is high priority, or if it's something they can do as needed.
And I think I had added originally the option to add, I think it was like 10 pictures, and I don't remember. I think it was, I don't know if it was you, Zach, but you're like, we're going to potentially need more than that. And then our subcontractor was also like, yeah, we're going to need like up to 50 per culvert. And so our attachment table is, I think, going on
Massive.
6 gigs at this point.
Massive.
So that's a whole nother presentation, probably, maintaining that. But yeah.
We found limitations to Dropbox and zip files and
right.
things like that real quick. So.
All right, next question is from Stephanie Jane Edwards. She asked, can these apps and dashboard be used on mobile phone or tablet devices as long as the GPS is turned on?
Yep, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, Collector and Survey123 totally, and the dashboard can be accessed on the web as well. I don't know. I haven't looked at the dashboard on a mobile. I assume it would look okay in landscape mode. I haven't actually tried that, but yeah, everything here is mobile accessible.
Cool. Next question from Byron Burrell. Have you used Power Automate or anything else to use the Survey123 data collection to be transferred back to a paper form for hard copy filing and submission to supervisors or other organizations?
Quick answer, no. haven't done that. Haven't tried that. We were actually looking at using the Survey123 web portal for creating feature reports originally, because there's a little bit of customization you can do with that. But essentially, in the end, one of our subcontractors just had a quick script to pull the attributes right out of the related table and basically throw it into a Word document. So that's what we ended up going with, kind of just a quick and easy, already set up solution. But that's something that's, I would like to look into. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
All right, I'm going to skip to one of these questions. We have a lot of questions here, and I just wanted to
Yeah.
say, one of them was, will these presentations be available? And I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be, these are recorded, and we will be uploading them to the NCGIS YouTube website, so look out for a communication on that. So I just wanted to be sure to get that one. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get to all of these questions in the remaining time. All right, Stephanie Kurtz asked, you may have said this, but will these reports archive, meaning we have an inspection for something twice a year, does the initial report get archived?
So it's not set up to do that right now. Essentially, this is, you know, we just created this one related table for now. But probably the way that would make sense in my mind is to create another column, another attribute in the parent ID, you know, or something to link it back to for a different year. You know, I hadn't really thought about archiving it yet, but you know, right now we've still got a lot to go. So, but you know, essentially having that global ID link should make it pretty easy to just generate a new related table for another year, that sort of thing. So that's a good question, though. I don't know if it was a good answer, but it was a good question.
Peter Erlenbach asked, how do you plan on handling the field maps upgrade and configuring it for a workflow such as this?
So yeah, Zach and I have talked about that a little bit and pretty much decided that at least for this iteration, the workflow that we have is working so well that you know, we've already worked out all the kinks in it. So we're probably not going to use field maps, at least on this iteration. You know, if this becomes a semi-regular thing, then that's definitely something that we'll look into. Because I mean, admittedly, it is nice to have one app rather than switching between two. But you know, like I said, there's a little bit more functionality still with Survey123, but I don't know that any of that is really necessary. So I do think that field maps would be a great option for an organization or, you know, municipality if they were looking to replicate this process. Right now, field maps is still in beta, I believe, for enterprise.
That's right.
But you know, you can still do a lot with a little. So yeah,
and
maybe
we weren't really set up for, I mean, we already kind of are consuming both of those, Collector and Survey123, and we really didn't want to jump in and reinvent the wheel kind of on the fly in the middle of a project. But that is something that we are going to as well. I mean, you know, you're going to have to eventually, I think, but you know, we're still consuming both of those, Collector and Survey123. Yeah.
Right. And WithersRavenel, we are doing some of our field collection projects. We've kind of converted over from Collector to field maps just to get that added functionality. But for this project, I was a little bit wary to kind of interrupt what we had going at this point. So yeah, something we'll look to in the future.
All right. We have one more question here. There's several left, but I will get these questions to Zach and Justin and Peter, so you can follow up if needed. But we'll end with this one. Let's see, where was I? Sorry, I lost my place here. Is each pipe assigned a PACP score based on the inspection completed by the contractor?
So, you know, I don't know if it is assigned a PACP score. I think they have scored it actually in 3 different ways. There was kind of like an overall score, then it was like a structural, you know, score, and then there was, and we kind of configured some grades for, you know, basic maintenance and things like that. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure on that, because you can kind of see when he's scrolling through that there's overall comments and there's performance ratings. I'm just not 100% sure. I don't know if I can answer that, but if you send me an email, I can get back with you and handle that kind of appropriately. That's a great question.
Well, great presentation, guys. Thanks for everything. Be sure to check out the next sessions. Kind of up against the time limit here, so sorry we ran out of time for the rest of the questions, but great discussion and great presentation, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Conference.
All right.